Being the most beautiful and richest girl in school definitely got into the head of Uyai. If not, why would she treat Harry the way she did? Here is the story of Uyai and her arrogant behavior. Uyai had always been comfortable with her life to the point where she questioned the cliche that life is not a bed of roses. In her opinion, life was more than a bed of roses. It was a bed of gold. Born with a silver spoon in her mouth, Uyai had never experienced suffering or poverty. As an only child, her parents spoiled her with gifts, pampered her, and made sure she got whatever she desired. Uyai had never tasted anything related to poverty. She grew up with the mentality that everyone was like her until she gained admission to a higher institution. There, she encountered people who struggled to make ends meet. While Uyai had everything she wanted on a silver platter, others fought to attain the same things. The girls in her class surrounded her when they discovered she came from a wealthy family. Uyai became the talk of the class, admired for her intelligence, beauty, and wealth. The guys tried to get close to her, which drove her to become a gym enthusiast, showcasing her stunning physique. Everyone in the class worshipped her like a goddess, except for one boy, Harry. Harry never joined in praising her and even advised her to change her ways, which infuriated her. She developed a hatred for him and ignored him thereafter. Harry remained indifferent, walking home alone after classes, wearing the same faded shirts and trousers, and minding his business. Uyai wondered why he was so proud despite her influence over the class. She did not realize that her wealth had gone to her head, making her look down on others. Uyai did many unpleasant things to those who did not conform to her rules, and her friends encouraged her. They even gave her a special name and remained loyal to her. Uyai dressed to impress them, winning several awards as a fashion icon. This continued until her final year in school. She refused to talk to Harry despite his daily greetings. Her anger towards him only grew. One evening, Uyai received an invitation to a wedding party and decided to attend, traveling by air. However, the plane encountered problems mid-flight, and the pilot announced that they would have to pray as the fuel uplift had been miscalculated. The plane began to descend rapidly, and Uyai held onto her seat, crying and praying. Before she could construct a prayer, the plane crashed and everything went blank. Uyai opened her eyes and tried to sit up, only to realize she was on a hospital bed. She couldn't move her hands nor legs because of the stitches and sharp pains she was feeling. "She's awake! She's awake!" someone exclaimed. It sounded like her mother, though Uyai was not sure because she slept off again. She woke up again after hours of sleeping. This time, she saw her mother and father standing beside her. Her mom's eyes were red and swollen. Uyai did not need to be told she had been crying. Uyai became this way for many months in the hospital before being told by the doctor that she was okay to go back home. For the first time in many months, her feet touched the floor. Her parents drove her home, helped her to her room, and she sat on her bed for close to 20 minutes, not knowing what had happened to her. She finally stood up and walked to the mirror to take a look at herself because she felt so uncomfortable, like something wasn't right. Uyai could not recognize the person reflecting in the mirror. She refused to accept that it was her. Maybe her mirror was faulty. She needed a different mirror for confirmation. Uyai stormed out of her room to her parents' room. She ran in, walked straight to their big mirror, and stood before it. Sadly, the mirrors were not lying. This was her, a new Uyai. Maybe she would have been able to recognize herself if at least she saw a bit of her beauty reflecting on the mirror. But all she saw was a face and body filled with scars. A once fitted lips now sewed to be able to cover up. A once beautiful pointed nose now patched up. A once scruffy body now looking very shapeless with scars and patches all over. A once smooth body now looking very rough and irritating with wounds and bruises all over. Her once straight and beautiful legs now looked wrinkled, worse than those of an old woman. If fainting, starvation and tears could change her to her former self, then Uyai was sure she would have returned to the perfect girl she used to be, because she cried for weeks and starved herself, but nothing changed. So she had no other option but to accept her new self. Uyai was depressed. She refused to go to school because she did not want her friends and admirers to see her in such a state. But her parents convinced her to go back to school. At least you have a friend who cares about you. He came to check on you in the hospital and dropped flowers for you, her mother had told her. This gave Uyai a little strength to go back to school, thinking it was one of the guys who admired her. But she was still worried because she had a lot of friends at school, so why was it just one of them who came to check on her? Back at school, everyone looked astonished to see her. Uyai waited expectantly to see her friends and admirers run down to welcome her or hover around her as usual, but none of them came around. During the break time, she waited to see them rush to join her so that they would eat, take pictures, and make videos as they usually did. But all of them avoided her like a plague and went to the next most beautiful girl in the class. Uyai lost her beauty, body, shape, and now friends. It felt like there was no hope for her anymore. She cried silently on her desk, but was suddenly shocked to hear someone called her beauty, her special name. She turned around and saw Harry. Without asking her, he came and sat beside her and called her by her special name the second time. Ever since Uyai had the accident, none of her classmates ever addressed her with her special name anymore, nor sat close to her except Harry. Uyai was speechless when he enclosed her in his arms and told her to stop crying, assuring her that as far as he was concerned, she was still beautiful. Uyai doubted him, showing him the scars on her face and body. Did the scars affect your brain? Harry asked her. How? She asked. Do you have the scars on your brain? Has it affected your intellect? No, she replied. Good. You lose your facial beauty, but your intellect beauty is still intact, which means you are still very intelligent, and that's one beauty that can never fade. All we need to now, since you've lost your facial beauty, is to add one more beauty to your intellect, he said, smiling. Which is, Uyai asked, your character. I know you are a nice person, but you were merely carried away. You can get back your beautiful character. Once you do, you are completely beautiful, Harry said. And so, Uyai became friends with Harry, and that marked the beginning of the changes in her. Uyai became the kindest girl one could ever think of. She became humble and very nice to people. She later found out that Harry was the only one who visited her in the hospital. Uyai realized that before the accident, she actually never had true friends. They were only attracted to her because of her physical appearance and influence. Uyai saw true friendship in the one guy who she thought was her enemy and a nobody. She did not actually know he was the truest and realest friend she could ever have. Harry made Uyai realize that beauty was beyond physical appearance. Brain beauty and character beauty turned her into the most beautiful woman on earth. And she felt so perfect that to some extent she forgot about her physical beauty. The end.